रहमतुल्लाहि व
वालेकुम
बरकातुहू।
अस्सलाम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू।
बड़ा अच्छा लगा, सबके नूरानी चेहरों की ज़ियारत हुई। कमर साहब, मुस्तफ़ा साहब, आपका बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने फिर मौका दिया। यूनिस भाई, आपके लिए बहुत सारी दुआएं, आपकी काविशें हैं। किबला हादी बाकरी साहब और कई और मुअज़्ज़ज़ लोग मुझे नज़र आ रहे हैं जिनके नाम, सबको सलाम। मैं शुरू करते हैं। आऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम, बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहिल्लज़ी ला यब्लुगुहु मिदहतहुल क़ाइलून व लियुहसिन अमाअहुल आदून व ला युअद्दी हक़्क़हुल मुज्तहिदून अल्लज़ी ला युद्रिकुहु बुअदुल हिमम व ला युनालुहु गौसुल फितन अल्लज़ी लैसा लिसिफ़तिही हद्दुन महदूद व ला नअतुन मौजूद व ला वक़्तुन मअदूद व ला अजलुन ममदूद فطر الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووطد بالصخور ميادان أرضه أفضل الدين معرفته ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خير المبشرين والمنذرين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على
محمد
وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل
على محمد وآل محمد।
सबसे इल्तिमास सूरह फातिहा है। आपसे गुजारिश है कि सैयद अली मज़हर रिज़वी इब्न सैयद काज़ी हुसैन रिज़वी, ज़हरा बेगम बिनत गाज़ी उद्दीन मसूद, सैयदा मजीदा मूसवी बिनत सैयद इजाज़ अली मूसवी और तमाम मरहूमीन ख़ानदान सैयद मोहम्मद अस्करी जाफ़री और सैयद अली जाफ़री और तमाम हाज़रीन की मरहूमीन के लिए सूरह फातिहा। Inshallah, as discussed, we will be having the discussion in English. The khitab will be in English, and inshallah, there's a request from Masaib of Alamdare and Shaykh Karbala, inshallah, at the end. To many of you, I'm bidding you welcome back as we come after the Ayam-e-Azha and we continue with our discussions that we were having before the advent of the past Muharram. And of course, at that time, the Mu'mineen get busy in fulfilling the main purpose of our existence, it would seem, which is the Azha of Imam Hussein and the martyrs of Karbala. So with a little more time on our hands, inshallah, on the coming Sundays, we will continue with our discussions. Today, as it's an Isalisa Majlis, I don't have the regular platform. I'm not going to put up the PowerPoint and go through it like we have been doing in the past, but inshallah, we will continue that style from next Sunday. And today I was asked to continue the topic that was being discussed before Ayam-e-Azha, which is Nahjul Balagha, and also to touch upon something that seems to be a recurring problem and something that seems to be increasing, and that is the problem and the arising of atheism in our ranks. And I mean our ranks, I mean our mu'mineen, our families who were believers for generations now are finding many of their offspring coming towards the ideology of atheism. So inshallah, we'll touch upon that as well in the brief time that we have. It is an Isal Sawab Majlis, and I would like to begin with one of my favorite narrations about life and death. And this is something that you will find in the book Al-Kafi by Sheikh Al-Kulani, alayhi rahmah. And also you will find it in that book in the chapter of life and death, Babul Maut wa Hayat. And it's a very elaborate hadith, and it probably takes at least an hour or a few hours in itself to discuss. But if I just briefly mention it in a minute or two, then it will also tie in with our topic as well. And it is we see in the narration from Al-Kafi that Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq as-salatu was-salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad
wa ali Muhammad.
is sitting with one of his companions, Hazrat Jabir al-Jawfi. And Hazrat Jabir al-Jawfi is sitting with the Imam. The Imam says, "Oh, Jabir." Jabir is, coming along in age, and he is sitting with the Imam. From the question of the Imam, it would seem that perhaps Hazrat Jabir was thinking about his own death at that time. Hazrat Jabir is an amazing companion with a lot of ma'rifah, because one of our topics has been from the past weeks about the ma'rifah itself, which is, understanding, comprehension, recognition. We define it or synonymize it in many different ways. And so he's a man of great ma'rifah, but he is, of course, like anybody, thinking about his death. And the Imam looks at him and the Imam says, "Oh, Jabir, tell me, do you know why people cry when they leave this world?" And Jabir says, "No, master, I don't know why. Please tell me." He says, "Oh, Jabir, do you know why people cry when they enter this world?" And Jabir says, "No, I don't know, master." He says, "Jabir, do you remember when you were just born, you were crying as your parents welcomed you?" And Jabir says, "No, I don't remember that, master." And Imam says, yes, you were crying. You were crying on the day that you came into the world, and your parents who were there to greet you were smiling and laughing. He says, "Jabir, the reason you did that was because," and this is amazing, I don't remember anything about the day I was born, but your holy Imam can not only tell you about you on the day you were born, he can tell you what you were doing on the day you were born, and also why you were doing it as well. So he says that, "Oh, Jabir, before you came into this world, the womb of your mother, this womb of your mother was your only universe. So therefore you did not know anything else. And when you left that warmth and that womb and the sound of your mother's heartbeat and the water that was surrounding you to come into this new universe, for you, that new universe was something that was completely unknown. It was something that was completely unknown, and therefore we do tend to fear the unknown. So it was your fear of what you are coming into that caused you to cry. But your parents and the family members that were there to greet you were very happy. The reason they were happy is because they knew what you were coming into. They knew that the womb of your mother that you were leaving was much smaller and nothing in significance compared to this greater world. So when you came into this greater world, they were happy for you. They were giving out sweets and they were saying shukran, alhamdulillah, and you were crying because you were sad for leaving what you had known. In the same way, Jabir, when you leave this universe, what happens is when you leave this world, then you go into the next world. And no, Jabir, when you leave this world and go into the next world, many times some of us are crying because we do not know what to expect in the next world. But oh, Jabir, just like when you left this world, when you left the old world and came into this one, and there were people there to welcome you, and they were happy for you. In the same way, there will be people in the next world, and they will be there to welcome you, and they will be happy for you. And the reason, and you might be crying because you do not know what is coming in the next world, but they will be grateful and happy because they know that what you are coming into is much better than what you are leaving behind. That is why when the time comes for a holy moment and, we see that he is being invited towards death, a moment is gently invited towards death. And at the time when the holiest Masumin and the greatest prophet of all time, we see our Sayyid Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam and Mawla Amirul Mu'mineen as-salatu was-salamu alayhi Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. What we see is that at that time, what we see at that time is that when I'm sorry, there's a little distraction here. Okay, there we go. So what we see at that time is when these two personalities come, it is said in Al-Kafi again, in the Bab al-Maut al-Hayat, that the greatest prophet and Amirul Mu'mineen ask the Mu'min, and they say that if you want to stay, we will let you stay, but you should see what is waiting for you. And when the Mu'min sees what is ahead, the Mu'min says, "I do not want to stay, master. I want to come with you. Why would I want to leave that and stay here?" It becomes impossible. Once the curtains are lifted, it becomes impossible for that mu'min to want to stay in this world. And that is what the shaheed is. That is why the shaheed is not somebody who is martyred by the sword. We tend to think of it like that. Shaheed means we are killed in battle. But if you look at the word shahada, and shahadat and mushahida. It has nothing to do with death itself. Death al-maut is different. Shahada is something that we do when we're alive. It's not something we do when we're dead. The fact that we do shahada when we're alive is what prevents death. So in actuality, saying shahada, and that is bearing witness. We say, I bear witness there is no Allah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Wa ashhadu anna Aliyun waliyullah. Wa awladuhu al-masumina hujjajullah. This testimony brings us to life. So what it does is takes us out of maut into hayat. And now, whether we are walking and breathing or lying in our grave, or whether we were, the cause of death was the sword or martyrdom or poison, or it was a natural death in sleep while lying on our bed, it makes no difference because all of them are shaheed. And that is why they said, Man mata wa ala hubbi ali Muhammad mata shahida, because it is not about death itself. He was already shaheed. When he was living, when she was living, they were shaheed. Now when they are dead, other people are saying they are dead. But Allah is saying, do not call them dead. They are shaheed. And shaheed means that they bore witness. And that means they were living. And that means they're always living. So the only way to bring true life to yourself is to bear the witnesses of the shahada. That is why, you know, some people, some of the youngsters will say when they're talking with me, especially about atheism, they will say things like, you know, oh, I didn't want to be alive. Why did I come into existence? God, you know, he brought me into existence. Maybe I didn't want to live. And so it should have been my choice. And so I tell them, it is your choice. He has not brought you into existence yet. Do not think of this world as existence. This world is just a prologue. It is the advertisement. It is the first introduction to existence. That means that if you are in this world right now, you don't really exist. If you want to exist, there is shahada for you. Give the shahada. If you don't want to exist, that's fine. You will go into non-existence. One of the levels of Jahannam is about non-existence. That means that you are nothing. You are in this state of nothingness, if that's what you so wish. In fact, when we look at this and then we see that the person now who's lying in the grave and whose heart and lungs have stopped, it does not mean that they are dead. No. That's the problem. The problem is that we defined existence by this earth and we defined life by the heart and lungs. But this is only the existence of the physical reality. So we have to go to other levels of reality. And in our body, there is the inner universe. Outside, there is the outer universe. Both of them have three levels of reality. We call them, there is the physical body, which is your actual, what you see, your muscles, your bones, your organs. There is your nafs, and there is your ruh. This kainat, this universe, also has a physical body. It has a nafs, and it has a ruh. And just like your physical body is studied by doctors and by biochemists and by geneticists, they study the physical body. And then your nafs is studied by philosophers and by psychologists and psychiatrists. Your ruh is studied by the ones who are attached to the religion. So the ruh is studied by the religious scholars, the ulama, and those esteemed spiritual personalities that exist around us. In the same way, the universe is like this as well. The universe's physical appearance, level one, is studied by the physicists and by the chemists, and they study the stars and the elements, and they study hydrogen and the planets and helium and the solar systems. This is the physical, but then there is the nafs of the body, of the physical universe, and the nafs of the physical universe ties into the cause. So that is why then we get into theoretical physics, or we get into philosophy, where we talk about the cause of the universe. And then there is a deeper side to the universe. The universe's nafs is studied when we want to understand the cause, but the ruh is the ruh, and the ruh is the why. So the physical is the what, and the nafs is the cause and effect. And the ruh is the actual why the world was created, why the universe was created. This is only answered by the representatives of Allah, by the holiest prophets and the Masumeen salatu wassalamu alayh. So when we ask them, we find out the why. So if we don't go into deeper and deeper levels, we will not be able to understand that. And that is the problem with atheism. When we look at atheism, it is specifically sticking to and focusing all its arguments on the physical reality of the universe, not on the nafs and not on the ruh of the universe. And that is why man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu. Because if we recognize our nafs, our self, which is three levels, physical, nafs, and ruh, then we will start to understand the Rabb. To understand the Rabb is to get to the ruh of the universe, which is the why of the universe. Why was the universe created? So the Imam says to Jabir Jofi that when you go into that next realm, in that next realm, what is there is much, much bigger than this. Oh, Jabir, he says, like the womb is compared to the earth is compared to the next world. And so the womb is much smaller than this earth, and this earth is much smaller than the next world. The womb is much simpler than what you do in this earth. In the womb, you do nothing. You are simply born and created. You are formed there, and you are nurtured by your mother and her blood and her nutrients and her oxygen, and that's it. And you grow. But in this world, you have relationships, you do a lot of different things, you end up marrying, educating, working, having a home, a family. So compare that to what's in the next universe. The next universe is incomparable. So what we're doing here is just a prologue. This is just to prepare you for real existence. The Imam says that, oh, Jabir, you should understand that what people think of as life is death, and what people think of as death is life. And we do not start to live until we actually close our eyes and enter into the grave. That means with our eyes open, we are seeing the zahir. We are seeing the manifest. With our eyes closed, we are seeing the ghaib. So these eyes do not show you the zahir. That is why my focus in the last few months with lecturing or, majalis with the youth has been one thing. And that has been, oh, youth, I tell them, do not wait to see your imam with these eyes, because these eyes are just balls of fat. And all they will show you is the reflection of light upon the physical body of your imam. You have to see your imam from the nafs and the ruh. That means that you have to see the imam from your metaphysical qalb. Your metaphysical qalb will show you the ruh and the nur of your imam. These eyes will just show you the skin, the hair, the beard, the face, the arms, the legs, not the truth and reality of your imam. We are waiting for Zuhur to see our Imam. Our Imam is waiting for us to see him so he will have the Zuhur. That means that we have to see him, but we have to see him with our qalb. And the qalb is your seat of ma'rifat. And the qalb is metaphysical. And when you can understand the nur of your Imam from this qalb, there is no need to wait to see him with this. The curtain, the ghaiba, that is very, very thin. It is a veil of clouds in front of your imam. The clouds cannot hide the nur of your imam. The clouds cannot hide the nur of the sun. Even the sunlight passes through the clouds and comes to you when you go outside on a cloudy day. Do we think that the clouds will hide the nur of our imam? Certainly not. It is everywhere, shining so bright that if we actually saw it, we would probably be disintegrated. That is how powerful it is. But the qalb of the mu'min, Allah has made as the only receiver of the nur of your imam. And the qalb of the mu'min has been tested by Allah. And it is said, our imam says in Tafsir Abu Hamza Thumali that, and he said, our Amir al-Mu'mineen says, and what does he say? He says, oh Ammar, you should know that our Amr, our Ma'rifah cannot be understood by anybody except the Nabi Mursal, the prophet that was sent with a message. Not even all prophets. It says Nabi Mursal, not even all Malaika. It says malak muqarrab, the malak that are closer, and not even all believers. The mu'min whose heart has been tested by Allah. The test of Allah is to see if this heart has the capacity to absorb the nur of your imam. The nur that was not absorbable even by the mountain of Tur. The mountain of Tur, which was a 20 by 20 kilometer mountain. It was the biggest mountain in that area. One ray of light that comes from the tajalli of the Rabb of Musa, which was one ray from the kiran of the ray of your imam, basically. Amir al-Mu'mineen in another sermon says that you should know, and he's talking about the end of days, and Amir al-Mu'mineen says in those end of days, when that time comes, and he gives all the signs that will happen. He says, at the end of this, you will see the coming of that one. And the people who were listening said, who is that one who will come at that time? He says, when the mosques are filled with prayers, with people praying, but there is no belief in Allah. When the Quran is being recited with abundance, but there is no iman in the Quran. When the leaders have become corrupt and unjust, and when the males are dressing like the females, females like males, and when, you know, this happens, and all the signs are mentioned, as you know, he says, then he will come. Who will come? He says, he will come whose one ray of light shone upon Tur when Musa went to meet his Lord. So that means that the kiran that hit Tur was one ray of light from the nur of your imam. Al-Qaim Ajjallahu Farajahum Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Tur could not take it. It was disintegrated. 70 Maulanas, Maulvis, rabbis who came with Hazrat Musa were killed by that. And Hazrat Musa fell into unconsciousness because he absorbed it. And when he absorbed the ray of light, the Quran says about this, chapter 7, verse 143, he says, Hazrat Musa said, Ana awwalul mu'mineen. I am the first mu'min. Why? Because he absorbed the nur of the imam into his qalb. So therefore, if Hazrat Musa's iman is increased by absorbing the nur of our imam of our age, then oh mu'min, look at your status of today. The mu'min of today is constantly absorbing the nur of their imam, but we have to have that qalb receptor on. The reception needs to be on. When the reception is on, it is there. Allah is transmitting that nur everywhere. G5 now reaches you very quickly, and you have great download speeds with G5. This is the transmitter of vilayat. This is not G5, G6, LTE. This is a tower. It is one tower only. It is not towers and towers everywhere like you have in your cities. That one tower is the tower of your imam, and your imam is spreading that nur everywhere, and the receiver is inside of us. All we have to do is turn it on. So therefore, you know, when we are looking, but we can't do that because one of the greatest assaults against our children is to get them bogged down into this physical realm. So what happens is they stop looking at the nafs and they stop looking at the ruh. And when you look at the nafs and ruh, that is when we start to reach it. Atheism is spreading now because, and there's simple questions that they are asking us. And, you know, one of the reasons why this is happening is because what we've done in the last 20, 30 years is that we have stopped focusing on usul-e-din. That means we do not explain Tawheed now. Sometimes after reciting a majlis on Tawheed, someone will come up to me and say, we have not heard anything on Tawheed in a long time. And now the effect of that is something serious. So what happens is, you know, we are talking mainly from the last 30 years. If you look at, and this is slowly increasing, but is now a majority from the, you know, from the pulpit, from the mimbar, especially in Ayam-e-Azha, now we are mainly focusing on furuh-e-din. And furuh-e-din are the acts of the religion. We have stopped focusing on usul-e-din as much. Some are, but I'm noticing every year it is becoming less and less. On the one hand, that seems like a good idea, because if we go back 20, 30 years, we see our elders were listening to khutbat and majalis that were mainly on usul-e-din, fazail Ahl Bayt, Masaib Ahl Bayt, usul-e-din, tawheed, nabuwat, imamat, on these things, and Khaybar o Khandak. This is all part of usul-e-din, because fazail and masaib of the Ahlul Bayt are part of our ma'rifah of tawheed. That means it's part of usul-e-din. So when we say bahut fazail ho gaye, we're saying bahut tawheed ho gayi. When we say bahut Ali Ali ho gaya, we're saying bahut Allah Allah ho gaya. When we're saying bahut Khaybar o Khandak ho gaya, we are saying basically bahut ma'rifat tawheed ho gayi. When we are against Nare Haidari, we are against ma'rifat tawheed. So all of this, and this is why, and now, it looked nice, because 30 years ago we said, wo banda hai, yaar bada maulai hai, bas lekin na namaz padhta hai, na hajj pe jata hai, na roza rakhta hai. So we were seeing that there was one effect of focusing only on usul and not on furu, which we did for centuries, by the way. For centuries, that's what we have done. It is only in the last 30, 40 years that we have started focusing on the furuh more. Otherwise, if you go back to pre-partition India, the khutabat, if you go back to, our entire migration process, trace it back to Medina, you will see the same. So what happened was, we said, log bedeen ho rahe hain, bas Ali Ali hota rehta hai, matam karte hain, namaz nahi padhte hain. So we started saying these things, and yes, that might have been an effect. That was an effect for a small percentage. There's always going to be a few who will do what they want to do, who will take the deen as they want to take it. Maula ko manenge, maula ki nahi manenge. There will always be those, true. But that was bad, but not as bad as now. Now it's worse. Because जो उसूल है वो जड़ है और फुरू है वो शाखें हैं, और पहले जड़ों को जिंदा रखा जाता था, उसका नतीजा ये था कि कभी ना कभी शाखों में फल आ जाता था। वो बेनमाजी होता था, कभी ना कभी नमाज पढ़ने लग जाता था, कोई ना कोई मौका ऐसा आता था, सुधर जाता था। लेकिन अब क्या है? Now what we have is atheism. Now it's different. पहले कहते थे वालिदैन, अरे हमारा बच्चा बेनमाजी है, हाँ मातमी तो है, अज़ादार भी है, बेनमाजी है। अब क्या कह रहे हैं वालिदैन? हमारे बच्चे ने अल्लाह को ही छोड़ दिया है, दीन को छोड़ दिया है, ईमान हट गया है. This is something I experienced personally in many cities I went to in Ayame Azza in US and Canada, and that is why I'm just saying it from my heart. It's something that, you know, I want to bring into the awareness, because only some parents are brave enough to approach me. Brave parents approached me in every city I went and said, this is what's happening. What should we do? There were parents with tears in their eyes, parents worried, parents who said, हम फर्शे अज़ा पे ला रहे हैं, हर साल ला रहे हैं, बचपन से ला रहे हैं, लेकिन पता नहीं क्या हो गया है, हम देख रहे हैं कि वो हटता जा रहा है. Some parents, as soon as they see the symptoms, they say something. Some parents, yes, a few years later, they'll say it, they'll realize a little too late, they'll be ignoring it, hoping that this child will grow out of it, but we are starting to see it, and we don't know why. And I think this is the reason why, personally. I could be completely wrong, don't have to agree with me, but when we look at the cause and effect, I think the reason why is we have stopped focusing on usul-e-din. And the reason I think that is because some of the questions that the children came to me were very basic Tawheed questions. It was not something very difficult and complex. It was not something that had to do with the latest atheist arguments in science. You know, nowadays physicists are trying to prove that something can be created from nothing. And they're trying to prove that therefore we do not need a God to create from nothing to something. Because in the debates that are going on between theism and atheism, one of the strongest arguments that theists have who believe in Allah is that everything comes from a cause, and for something to be there, it would have come from nothing. So who's going to bring something from nothing? And now the physicists are trying to prove through formulas that you don't need a God to do this. Nothing can give rise to something. So the atheism debates will continue. Today's time, I probably तमहीद में ज़्यादा वक्त लग गया, atheism के arguments की तरफ नहीं आया, लेकिन इंशाअल्लाह I look forward to बशरत ज़िंदगी और इज़्न मौला, we have time, so we'll continue those discussions, because yes, they are important to have with our children, because some of us are parents whose children are attached to Farsh Azza. If you're attached to the Farsh Azza, I've noticed that we have been saved. But what's happened is when we focused on the Furuhideen too much, and of course you can't focus on it too much. Throughout your year, throughout your day, Furuhideen are important every second of your life. But what I mean is the Mimbar and the time of Ashura and Ashur and the Shahadat are the time of renewing the faith and Iman. And therefore, when we're talking about the different types of ways wuzu breaks and the different types of ghusl that we should do and what fruits you should eat in what month of the year, this is great for the whole year around. When we do it in the first Ashra of Muharram, then what we're doing is many people are only going to take that. So what they end up doing is they end up remembering all these acts. They're being told, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. But their questions to why is this, why is this, why is this are not answered. And then what happens is the new generation with the era of science is not going to have the blind faith that the previous generations had. Previous generations believed in many things, and the reason was because we just didn't have that science to understand it. So we took things for granted. Now is the day and age of science. So your new generation is asking questions, why? And definitely we have to understand that. The first thing that was tested in human beings was marifat. You know, I'll continue with the atheist arguments next week, tying it in with our Nahjul Balagha Sermon 1 as we continue. But I would like to end the last minute just with, you know, the first test of humankind. Our ancestor, the first Bashar and the first Khalifa and the first Prophet is Hazrat Adam alayhi salam. When you look at Hazrat Adam alayhi salam, you will see that when he comes in front of the angels, then what happens? He's standing in front of the angels and the angels bow down in prostration to him. Why did they do that? It is said in Tafsir al-Qummi that they did this, our Imam says that they did this when the angels saw that Adam knew what they did not know. Then they were given the command to bow down in sajda to Hazrat Adam. And when you look at what Hazrat Adam was taught by Allah, what you will see is that وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. وَعَلَّمَ, and he taught Adam asma, the names, kullaha, all the names. Now, when it was asked, what are all the names? Interestingly, the Imam replied, the names that were taught to Hazrat Adam were the names of the Masumin, the names of the prophets, the names of the Mu'mineen. These three. So the names of the Masumin, the prophets, and the Mu'mineen. Not the names of Allah, interestingly. So this means that he was taught the names of the Masumin. But when he was told, Ya Adamu anbi'hum bi asma'ihim, O Adam, tell them about their names. You see, it says anbi'hum. If you go and look at Surah Baqarah, Surah number 2, verse number 30 onwards, you will see these. Anbi'hum, O Adam. Anbi is from Nabi, is from Naba. And Anbi means to give the news. So the Nabi brings the news. So hum, and hum is them. Who is them? The angels. He is being told by Allah, hum bi asma'i him, by their names. You notice Allah did not say, tell them my names. Allah said, tell them their names. And there's a reason for that. Because Allah in his true sense does not have ism. He is a zat. That means ism is not for Allah. That's why the Imam said the one who worships the ism is kafir. The one who worships the ism and zat is a mushrik. The one who worships the zat, that is a muwahid. So he said, interestingly, he said, O Adam, tell them their names. Unke naam batao. Allah ne ye nahi kaha, mere naam batao e Adam. Ye kaha, unke naam batao. Qabil ghaur hai ye ayat. Iska matlab ye hai कि जो Hazrat Adam को नाम सिखाए गए थे वो उनके थे. And then what did Adam do? He said, Hazrat Adam alayhi salam said, Hada Muhammad. That was the Muhammad that he had been taught. he was taught the name Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said, "Wa antal Mahmud." So the Mahmud was the marifah that Hazrat Adam reached through this name, this nur that was Muhammad. Wa hada Ali. Hada means he could see it. Hada means ye samne hai, मैं देख रहा हूं, इशारा कर रहा हूं. Hada wa anta, अब ये गैब है. Hada zahir hai, anta ghaib hai. Hada Ali wa anta Aliul A'la. This was the ma'rifah. This was the qalb of Hazrat Adam that converted the zahir, the ghaib into zahir. यानी कि हमारा कल्ब वो मौजज़ा है जो गैब को ज़हूर देता है. आपके इमाम गैब में है, इस गैब को ज़हूर देना है कल्ब में. इमाम जितने आपके कल्ब में जाहिर हैं, कहीं और जाहिर हो ही नहीं सकते, क्योंकि ये कायनात बर्दाश्त नहीं कर सकती. अरे तूर ने बर्दाश्त नहीं किया जो मोमिन का कल्ब बर्दाश्त करता है. अब now so what Hazrat Adam does is he converts hadha Fatima, that is zahir, wa anta fatir as-samawati wal ard. This was the ma'rifah. So as he continued to do this, he was converting the Asma'ul Husna, that is Zahir, into the Ghaib, which is the Ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this was the first test. This was the first test of humankind. And this was so amazing that Allah said, فَسَجَدَ الْمَلَائِكَةُ كُلُّهُمْ أَجْمَعُونَ إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ. And this was what caused Allah to make them all prostrate to Adam. Ab iski ma'rifat ko sajda karo. ये ताज़ीमी सजदा है, उबूदियत का नहीं है, लेकिन ये अब इसकी मारिफत को. क्यों? क्योंकि अब वो नूर मुंतकिल हो गया है हजरत आदम में. And this is why, मोमिन, तुम तो आदम के सजदे पे परेशान हो जाते हो, फिर कहते हैं कि यहाँ सजदा क्यों कर दिया, वहां सजदा क्यों कर दिया, यहाँ क्यों कर दिया. अल्लाह ने तो मारिफत को सजदा करवा दिया है. So it's so important to understand what this मारिफत is. And that is why जब हम देखते हैं